bit about Plum Analytics, because some people may or may not have heard about it in the room. So we're a startup that we founded in January of 2012. I'm a technologist by background. My co-founder, Mike Bushman, is a librarian. And together we met when we were creating the Summon Discovery Service. And we both left there with the goal of starting a company and looking at what was out, what was happening in the industry, what was happening with scholarly data. There was this data exhaust that was being created, and I'll talk a little bit about that. And that was really the premise that we said, let's build something around this. We decided that in January. In March, we demoed it live in front of a couple of hundred people. And in May, the University of Pittsburgh signed up to be the first customer. A year later, we launched PlumX, the actual product, live. And then another year after that, again, all in January, EBSCO acquired us and really is a great match and expressed that this idea, this concept is very quickly coming of age. So what our little tiny mission here is to redefine how scholarship is measured. We just heard a bunch about impact factor, and I won't go into that. But if you take it like even the next level down and say, what is this system of scholarly impact that's been designed since the 1960s? It's about impact factor, and it's also about citation counts. Getting an article published in a high impact factor peer-reviewed journal and getting that work cited by another article in a high impact factor cited journal is the name of the game. And one of the problems with that is that these are really lagging indicators. Depending on the discipline, from the time that work is done until you get critical mass of citations, it can take anywhere from 3 to 5 years to get to that measurement. So when we look at this example that I have on screen, which is a journal article published by an early career researcher, published in Nature, about, I don't know the exact time, maybe 6 to 9 months after it was out and published. Scopus and Web of Science, it's barely registering. That's what's on the left, but on the right we see all of these other sorts of metrics that we can start to talk about the velocity or start to get a measure of the fact that people are talking about and engaging with this research. Researchers, like all of us, have moved online. As they're doing their normal, going about their business, doing their work online, they're leaving all of the scholarly data exhaust. So when they're viewing something, it's getting captured in web logs that, this was viewed. If they're sharing something, there's evidence of that. And as they're putting more and more beyond just journal articles, all of those other alternative work products are also out there and generating data about them. So what we do is we pool all of that together into alt metrics categories. So the first category that we pool together is usage. So article level usage data, being able to see how many times has that article been viewed or downloaded. Also, if it's a slide presentation, how many times has it been viewed? How many times has the video been played? All of this is usage at that article level and is important. The next category of metrics are captures. So this is when people go beyond just using the data and they're saving it for later. They're saving it as a bookmark or a favorite, or they're putting it in their reference management software like Mendeley. And this category of people capturing the work, when you look at the research that's being done right now, that's showing that is really indicative, a good leading indicator of what will be cited later. And it makes sense, right? You're saying I want to come back to it later. So when you go to write your report, write that article, they're the things that you're more likely going to cite. So they're really good evidence. The next category of alt metrics are mentions. So you've gone beyond just viewing it or bookmarking it, and now you're going to comment on it, write a review about it, write a news article about it, a blog post, create a Wikipedia article and link to that. Someone has mentioned this work. Social media we group together. And you can find conflicting evidence out there of, do tweets predict citations? I can give you 10 studies that say absolutely, and 10 more that say no way, right? What we do know is tweets are and other social media is a really good indicator of how well is that work promoted. So if you look at the half-life of the citation in the context of years that I talked about, the half-life of a tweet is measured in seconds. You know, you see this graph of I tweet something, I tweet on my new research paper, it's retweeted by 5 of my friends like that. They haven't read it, they haven't endorsed it, they're helping me promote it. And it's a good measurement of promotion. Whether or not it predicts citations, time will tell. And then of course, citations are a part of this equation. It doesn't go away. It's part of the category when you're looking at impact at an article level, you need to continue to include those. So our approach is to look at all 5 categories of metrics. Alt metrics, you'll hear it sometimes narrowly defined as just those bottom 3 categories, mainly social media and then captures and mentions. How I like to think about alt metrics are, in the world of print, you could only measure certain things. So you measure the container, the impact factor, and you could count citations in a print journal of who cited what. And that's kind of the visible light spectrum, and that's all we had for a very long period of time. But now we've instrumented things more fully. We have better instruments to measure the scholarly data exhaust, and we can see more of that impact spectrum. The great thing about metrics is that they're a feedback loop. So they tell you how you're doing. So that speed limit sign on the side of the road tells you, if it's just a static sign, it tells you one thing, but if it tells you how fast you're going compared to the benchmark of how you should be doing, then you may slow down in this case, you may not. You may just look to see how well does your speedometer track your speed, which is kind of what I do with that data. But they're there for a purpose. This Fitbit is a great example of using metrics to change behavior. You wear this band, and this was someone on the Plum team that I masked out his name to protect the innocent, but I think he sent it to me for that bottom stat down there. The average sleep duration is 1 hour and 51 minutes. I think he was just trying to brag when he sent this, hey, look at this great example of metrics. I'm working really hard. But these metrics change behavior once they're available to you and in front of you. So how do all these alt metrics, how do they help me? So if you're performing research, they give you that new data to compete in an ever more competitive environment. A way to show not just what have I done in journal articles, but I produced a video series and look, it's being viewed by other people, and this helps me tell more of my story if I'm performing research. Funding research and funding bodies are increasingly talking to people like Plum Analytics, so that's good news that these metrics are starting to get into that funding decisions. And the main reason why people come and talk to us is to help them tell the story of the ROI of the research and tell the impact behind what they're funding. And then, of course, if you're publishing research, what this enables you to do is to start to give that feedback loop on the data of who's interacting with that article, and it lets you, for your authors, be able to give them metrics that you can both internally see who are your quote-unquote best authors, what authors are generating the most interest and impact, as well as give them tools to be able to retain those authors on your platform. So how does this work? How do we track this research impact? Well, the way we think about this is, so imagine we have all this data exhaust. It enables us to start to be able to answer who is influencing whom. What are the hot topics? What research is getting traction right now? Not 3 to 5 years from now when we all know what the seminal article about XYZ is. But right now, who's influencing whom? So our approach from day one hasn't been just about giving article level metrics, measuring and trying to give some context around people, not just the papers they author. So we've built for scale. This is, my background is building very high volume, high availability services. And so again, a little tiny goal, tracking all the world's researchers, all that they produce, mapping that to the people, and then everything, all the groupings they're affiliated with. the journals they publish in, the department in their institution, across the institution they're affiliated with. Tiny little thing, right? But building this graph of data, that's what we're passionate about, and that's what we're building. Let's see if this works cross platform. Oh, it works, woohoo! I never know what the new PowerPoint setup. So this shows you the University of Pittsburgh's dashboard. So across those 5 categories, for all that we're tracking, usage, captures, citations, social media, and mentions, what are the top 5 places where we gathered that data from? Let me go back. So it shows the top 5 different sources that we've pulled it in across all of University of Pittsburgh's output. You can also narrow in researcher by researcher to be able to see a researcher dashboard. So this is university dashboard. You can go in and see a person dashboard. They publish 26 journals through University of Pittsburgh. You can go journal by journal that they publish, issue by issue, and see the metrics those same sorts of ways. You can also navigate through their own custom hierarchy of either by school and departments or by research institutes, and can drill into the data that way. That need to be able to start at a group or even a person and say, what are they known for, right? When you're in that specialty that's new to you. This is one of the visualizations that we built to enable that. So what this does is you can kind of take a set of documents or set of output and say, for anything that has more impact or more engagement, it gets a bigger piece of the pie. For anything that doesn't have as much, it's smaller. And so across hundreds of artifacts, you can get a quick at-a-glance view when you're looking at a researcher for the first time or a department for the first time, what is most impactful, or a journal issue. So Tony here is his profile, which he was so pleased to know that I was going to show this to you. So he has lots of different profiles online with all of his research. And let's see if it's going to start. There we go. So as you're looking at a person, the same 5 categories, but also a quantifiable bar graph. And in here, we're going to go into all of the different types of captures, and then sorted by Mendeley readers. So what is the top thing stored in Mendeley? And then clicking through to a particular article, you can get the article level metrics. And then every single metric that we can is hyperlinked back to the original source. So here we went into Bitly, which is a link shortener, and we can see for this particular article, when did all of the clicks on that link happen, and where in the world did those clicks happen as well. So it gives data to be able to drill in all the way from the very top level down to the most minute level. And there's a discovery aspect to understand who interacted with that. How many people here have ever Googled their own name? Right? The people who don't have their hands up are probably lying. So this, if you can imagine from a researcher's perspective, this isn't just Googling your name. It's seeing how many people, who and what they're saying. This is the kind of way that we can enable exploration into the data, and that's what these alt metrics give us. So here's what this looks like at an artifact level, and we call them artifacts because they're more than just articles. And so now we're going even more detailed, right? We're being able to say, here's the top 5 categories, and here's all of the data that's under there. Notice we're not saying this is worth so much. We're exposing that raw data. We've categorized it and grouped it to make it more digestible so you can look at groupings of things and compare and contrast, but we're not specifying this is what this is. We're not giving it one score. So this new little icon here is what we're calling the Plum Print. So across those 5 categories, we have a way of saying how much is there in each category, a kind of quick at-a-glance way. This is what can get embedded in a journal article page to give you that at-a-glance. Here's what the impact is. You hover over it, it pops up more details. You click on that and you get to that even more detailed page. This is, again, Tony's work here, looking at a search result, searching for his name, and being able to see the different categories and getting just some way that there's something happening here to click in and see more data. All of these quick little article level visualizations. This data can be embedded back in, so we have it embedded into journals. Also, in this case, it's Pitt's Institutional Repository. And one of the interesting things to note here, if you look at the metrics, is it's not just metrics about one particular version of the article. So it has download counts from their IR, it has download counts from PLOS, it has download counts from PubMed Central. We have all of that data together. So behind the scenes, we're connecting and linking together all the different places that the article can be seen. So if you tweet any of those articles, any of those locations, we'll pull all those metrics together and gather that in one place. So what data sources get used? This slide, we love to joke that we're just waiting on Zotero so we can go A to Z. They just announced they have an API, so a new API that got funding for it, so we're really excited about that when it's ready to be used. But you can see this list grows week over week, and from consumer-facing things like Amazon for books, all the way down to Wikipedia, things, social media, and as many places as we can get metrics from, we'd love to include them in this cool, ever more robust picture of impact. The point of it's more than just research articles. We want to measure all of these things. We currently have 20 different types of artifacts that we represent. Some have very custom ways of getting data. So if someone's storing source code and putting it on GitHub, we have a way to pull in data about that. If they're videos, being able to enable pulling specific video metrics in. Books are something that we started from the beginning. Our second customer was the Smithsonian, and you can imagine all of the very niche research that's happening in the corners of the Smithsonian. So here's an example of a book. We partnered with OCLC to get counts from the number of libraries that hold the book. And so if you get humanities scholars together and you give them this tool, it's really fun to watch them say, I was held in the 630 libraries. Oh, my book was held in this. And giving them metrics for a crew that's metrics thirsty is great. And giving them, again, that discovery way of being able to drill in and look at the reviews that are actually written about it and giving them data that they've been sorely lacking. We also don't have to stop just at that article. This is an example of second level metrics. So someone authored an article, and now there's been all of this that's been written about it, the New York Times, the BBC. So yes, it's nice that this is articles that have written about my work, but now let me get these second level metrics to tell me about what's the reach of those things. So you can kind of think about fanning out and getting even more data and more context when you're trying to make that case or talk about why this work was important. So one of the questions we get asked a lot is, okay, well that's great and all, what about gaming, right? What are you going to do to bulletproof these metrics? One of the things we firmly believe is no single counts. So the impact factor with its single count is a dangerous thing, especially when you compare things across disciplines. For people, giving a single count is also dangerous. Here, 48 is my clout score, and I am a 618 on cred. So I don't know what that means. It might be better than being a 42, I'm not sure. But these numbers are kind of meaningless. You will also find out that I'm very influential about, at one point at least, hot chocolate, according to Cloud. Similarly on articles, we do not, it's so tempting, but we do not give a single score per article. Because what does it really mean to say, when you're trying to compare an economist paper with an oncologist, with a humanities scholar, there's no way to compare those. And so no matter how you simplify it down to a single number, it's fraught with danger. A great example of this is, two houses have a price of $500,000. One is an urban Victorian, and the other is, in the suburban cul-de-sac. They both have the same number assigned to them, but the story of those houses is not at all represented by that one price. And that's what we're trying to represent here, are the stories, and letting the numbers and the metrics tell those stories. So what we've done instead is allow data to be compared in many ways. This is actual different types of metrics calculated about a subset of our data, and you can compare any one of these things to one another. So you're really interested in answering, do tweets correlate with citations for this data set? You can go and just pull out that data to do your own analysis. And compare like with like. Present all of that data together so you can compare things that make sense to be compared. Compare custom collections of articles. Compare one issue to another issue. Two researchers in the same domain, look at their output stacked up next to one another. That's the path we're going down.